Having set up our workspace in the previous exercise, we are ready now to make a start at creating our screw thread component. Now it is possible, especially so if you are somewhat new to hard surface modeling in general, that you may be a little bit confused by the way in which we start to create our geometry here. Hopefully though, by the end of the video, you will be able to see just where we are going with this. Indeed, when it comes to hard surface modeling in general, it is a fact that we sometimes need to think a little bit outside of the box, as it were, imagining multiple ways in which we could create the final effect that we want. In this instance, we're going to create our screw thread by starting with a plane primitive. In the Create tab of the Command panel then, inside the Geometry section, we want to activate the plane option. And then, holding down the Shift key, right-click in our viewport in order to gain access to our snap settings. Inside the Snap Toggle quadrant, we want to make sure that everything is turned off except for the Grid Points option. With that done, we can left-click in the viewport to dismiss the quad menu, press S to engage our 3D Snap tool, and as you can see, we are now snapping to the 1 cm spacings on our new active grid object. Using a left click and drag then, we can now draw out a plane that is 7 grid points or 7 centimeters wide. Now if we wanted to create this screw thread at exactly the correct scale, right from the get-go, then we would obviously need to set our grid settings to whatever exact measurements were required, bearing in mind that the length of the plane that we create here is going to be the actual radius of the screw thread. This would mean taking the time to figure out the mathematics required to achieve that. Because we are working from reference though, rather than blueprints or manufacturing data, we should be fine scaling our thread pieces so that they simply look good in the end. Having right-clicked to end the creation of our plane then, let's set the segment values for both the length and width parameters to 1. Now we are going to add more width segments a little later on, but adding them now will, well, only make our next step that little bit harder. With our plane object still selected then, let's convert to an editable poly and jump into vertex subobject mode. After which, we want to select the 2 vertices on the right here, and then press W to engage our move tool, making sure that snaps are on, and that we have clicked to constrain ourselves to just the Y axis. We're going to hover our cursor over just one of the vertices here, and pull them both up 1 grid space, so that we have this sloping angle. Now if you're wondering why we didn't just use the transform gizmo to move our vertices up, this is because by default, the snap would then occur at the center of our vertex selection, which in this instance is not what I want. Constraining the axis and then making the move with the mouse over just one vertex ensures that the snap operation gives us the gradient we need. And with that done, we can reactivate our home grid and then delete our working grid as, well, we're done with it. Hopefully, you're getting some idea now as to where we might be going with this. So let's come into Edge Subobject mode, select the 2 longest edges on our shape here, and in the Loop panel on the ribbon, hold down the Shift key and click the Connect tool, which of course brings up our Options caddy. In here, we're going to create as many segments as we think will be needed for our mesh to deform smoothly. 6 should do nicely in this instance. And we can then hit the check or OK icon in order to lock those changes into place. Jumping back into the perspective view, what we want to do now is apply a bend modifier and set its bend angle to 360 degrees using the X-axis. Let's open up the material editor using the M key and apply our modeling material to the shape that we have created, as we are now ready to move into our next video and use what we have here to go ahead and create our screw thread.